All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP Online Sales Magazine and Covera, formerly Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Charlotte Johnson, who is across the pond, I believe, correct?
Yes, here in London.
In
Very
London,
rainy London.
in rainy London. Absolutely. And Charlotte is the founder and CEO of Drew and Rose, a creative digital marketing agency making moments and connections for partners offline, online, and in real life. And what we want to talk about today is this great thing. It's making marketing accountable to lead gen and bridging the sales marketing gap. And Charlotte, it's one thing that has amazed me forever is every year I say this, right? I say, okay, it's 2022 and we're still talking about sales and marketing alignment. Well, it's 2026 and we're still talking about sales and marketing
Yeah.
alignment. Why so?
And it still amazes me, even the larger companies I go into. So maybe in the smaller SME, I get it, sort of below the 20 million kind of mark, that it does make sense because they would have been siloed and maybe
Yeah.
the training isn't always there. But actually, it's in the much bigger companies too. And there's a couple of things. One, there's the mindset issue. So if you've never been trained as marketeers how to do it, and you've got suppliers, the old model of marketing agencies that aren't accountable to deliver results, sales will then, they've got targets to hit. They're not paid,
Mhm.
and therefore marketing, they've got a base, or they may not have a base, and they've got to get their leads, they've got to get their targets. And when marketing has never been made accountable, they don't know how to do it. But also, even just their comp, right, of how they're paid.
Mhm.
Marketing, if marketing's purpose, which it is to generate leads or sales, depending on the business, it's four purposes, right? If you've got an online business that can sell online, your job is to generate those sales. If it's B2B, then it's leads or inquiries, or it might be footfall or event signups. Like, they're really the main things marketing has to do. But they haven't got incentives based on that. So most of the
Mhm.
time, marketers aren't paid in a way where they have to generate those leads. I think marketers would be way more accountable if they said, right, this is your base, but this is what you get for meeting setting. This is what you get for generating a okay lead. This is what you get for generating a quality lead. And then if it converts, that's down to the salesperson. I've
Mhm.
seen that work. Also, because leadership generally don't make sales and marketing sit in the same meeting, they don't have the respect for each other of what each other does. And leadership teams very rarely make a safe space to say, hey, we're a test and learn culture. We can see in this funnel, this is where we're losing. This is where we have the leaky bucket. Actually reduce media spend here, increase it here,
Mhm.
change that targeting. Um, and then sales don't really want to give feedback on leads because it's much easier to blame marketing.
Yeah.
So again, leadership really should be bringing them together. That says, actually, that's not okay. If you're delaying getting on top of those leads, that's a you problem, or the system, the process hasn't been followed. If there genuinely is a lead that hasn't got the quality there, then yes, that's a targeting problem. But it takes the leadership team, and then how you create those meetings has to
Mhm.
create it as a process problem, or the process wasn't followed. So it takes the people element out of it, because the loggerheads is all just ego and fear.
Yeah.
And some of the best teams that I've worked with really have that leadership team in place that stops that happening.
Yeah, it is fascinating, and as you said, this isn't. This is sometimes it's in the biggest companies have the biggest problems. I have done. I once did with a massive global company. I won't name their name, but we did a session with them because the CEO called in and said, sales and marketing, they're not communicating, and it was complete like antagonism across the table from both sides
Yep.
because they didn't understand each other's job, they didn't understand each other's needs, and once we started working through it, they certainly started to realize that they've been just talking past each other.
Mm. And it's removing the blame, but also, as you say, understanding it. So
Mm.
when we have sales teams and marketing teams sit in the same meeting, and we go from start of the funnel journey, tracking it all the way through into CRM, what does that nurturing look like? Get an avoid of like, oh, whose responsibility is that? It's everyone's responsibility.
Mhm.
Generate the ideas, because the more quality leads we get, the more we convert, the more we all win. Um, and the more they're exposed to that and seeing the data and how that drops out, the generally the better I see those sales teams perform.
Mhm. And the other thing too is, I think part of it too is sales and marketing, like inviting each other to their meetings, right? Some internal meetings. Like why doesn't marketing sit in on the war room sales meeting to hear what's going on?
Yeah.
Why doesn't somebody from sales sit, maybe from sales operations or whatever, or sit in on some marketing meetings and give feedback? I think these are simple things that companies could do tomorrow.
Yeah, and but they do have to create a space
Hmm.
where they feel it is a bit of psychological safety in that for both sides. Because even if you have a very confident salesperson and a very unconfident sort of behind the data marketing
Hmm.
person, they still have fear of these unknowns. So it's about creating the space where they where they can do that. But just listening in, as you say, just creates so much knowledge. But oh, I see where they're struggling.
Hmm.
But again, that has to be that vulnerability within the organisation that says, "Hey, John, we're not doing too well here."
Yeah.
But that only comes if you have a test and learn and open culture. If you have a blame KPI and like target must be hit or you're out culture, they are not going to last.
Hmm. And
I mean,
what
don't
is,
get me wrong, like numbers have to be hit, but at the
yeah.
same time, to create the culture, you've got to adapt.
So what are some of the ways that the processes or ways of interacting that the marketing and sales can adopt that can help actually drive lead quality and better close rates and all that good the stuff that we really want? What are some of the processes that you can use to get there?
Yeah, so I think coming together first of all to get the tech stack talking to each
Mhm.
other amazes me how many companies in the world still don't have their tech stack talking to each other, and
Mhm.
that's a natural thing that they both own that starts to bring that gap together, that starts to build the relationship before it becomes difficult, and that's often a really good starting point. And while there's some great AI tools that's helping that, again, there's no point putting an AI solution on top when the foundation just isn't
Yeah,
there. That's a
exactly.
recipe for disaster. So
Mhm.
bringing those together is a nice way to build the relationship. Then mapping out and visualizing the entire journey, and either do that by product or by person. It's either a persona drive or a product
Mhm.
drive. Even when it's services, it's still a product. Um, then when they visualize it and see what everyone's done, who's responsible for where, I love tools like Funalytics or Clay where you can visualize and track, see the lines between each stage, look at the percentage dropout of each stage, and then track that all the way through and then work backwards to then, oh, change that word or change that color, change that button. Because as soon as both sides starts to see the development of those incremental gains as they compound week on week, everyone starts to get excited because all of a sudden it's not, oh, what do we need to do that's massive to get all of these leads in? It's actually, oh, these tiny things are working. And once you're building 1% gains, the pressure is off. So
Mhm.
marketing get excited, sales get excited. It's like, oh, this is something we're doing together, but it's a bit slower.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. And you did touch on AI there for a moment, and this is another thing that's kind of coming to the mix now. How do sales and marketing teams leverage AI in a positive way and not in a way that actually makes the divisions worse?
Yeah, and I think there is risk of that because you can start just using your AI assistants to be like, well, we don't need you marketing, like it just does
Exactly.
it for you. I think they'll very quickly realise that while we can speed things up and do some great things, it doesn't always work. And we've seen a lot of that. We do AI agents and AI assistants are
Mhm.
generating these automated campaigns. And when you look at that compared to a campaign that is done slightly more manually, you can use AI tools, but actually analyze it, tweak it, make changes again. Um, the conversion rates are still nowhere near each other.
Mm.
But if there isn't, even with the tools, if the relationship is bad, it's irrelevant, and they're still not gonna they're not gonna make friends. But I think getting back to the tech stack, getting the CRM at the heart of it,
Mhm.
making sure that you can use your AI agents and assistants over the top, but they need to be trained. So in our business, we have an assistant for every role, and we have an assistant for every brand. They have a name, they have a job description, they have KPIs, they have a weekly meeting. So we treat them as people because that's the easiest way to get around it. And when we teach marketing teams, that's what we also do to get them there at the same time. Um, you can assist. So I mean, Claude Cowork is amazing when you're looking at assisting, like getting your tech stacks talking, automating those campaigns. But just like it was before we had the social revolution, even the AI revolution, if you just let a campaign run for 8 weeks and you're not optimizing it
Yeah.
weekly, checking where the issues are, changing it, talking to the sales team, getting feedback, you're just exactly where we were 5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on that, as you built your agency, right? I mean, what were some of the things that you were thinking about as you built your agency to make sure that you were able to really work with organizations and impact their marketing, impact their sales
Yeah.
organizations? What were some of the ideas or some of the concepts that you built on?
Well, we looked at the model and just looked at all the areas where it just doesn't serve. So for us, our clients, we demanded sales and marketing have to be in the weekly meeting. It's not an
Mhm.
option. It's
Right.
like a contract criteria. We go through the funnel and map it out weekly. So we're looking at those numbers. We have quarterly targets and even monthly targets, but we are responsible for those. So we don't deliver time or service. We have to be responsible for the full funnel with the team. And if we have to deliver this many sales or this many leads, and we do whatever it takes to get there. So no timesheets, no extra scope creep. So we were then accountable, just like a salesperson has to be accountable to convert. That then got the marketing teams to feel more confident because we were there to support them. And then secondary to that, in our weekly meetings with them, we spend about 15 to 20 minutes on like the results, actions for next week, about 40 minutes coaching, mentoring, and training. And this is how to use the tools, basically teaching what we do. Because again, if we're trying to elevate our industry to be accountable, we have to do it at every touch point. So we really challenged ourselves with the model to see how we could do that in a really disruptive way. And it's almost why we actually started recently calling ourselves a marketing company, not an agency,
Right.
because we've really disrupted that old model and want to bridge the gap between sales and marketing. And then a more recent thing in recent years, we did a 3-step framework where we say, well, we'll do it for you. Then we'll do it together. We do the services you can't do. You take some in-house. Then we get to the stage where you do it yourselves. And at that point, sales and marketing are working harmoniously and they're following the system. And we're just really brought in for a bit more strategy or like coaching through those calls. So those 4 or 5 things were really I suppose, the real disruptor in the system. Because like, if we're going to go in and tell these people that they can work together, we've really got to provide a service and an outcome that they really need. And then one step further than that, we then started guaranteeing the results. So as a business, if they were outsourcing marketing and sales, it's just quite risky. There's a lot of money that goes out. So if we do a 12 or 24-month contract, what we say then is by month 9, if we haven't hit the targets we have said we're going to hit, we work fee-free for 2 months.
Mhm.
And then if we still haven't done it, we're fired.
Right.
So we kind of had skin in the game from the get-go in the same way a salesperson does. And then we started introducing that in the marketing team. Well, why don't you rethink about commission? Because if you had a lead gen company, you would give them commission. If you have salespeople, you give them commission. If you start doing that to marketing, makes them accountable and they're incentivized in the same way. So for companies that really want their marketing team to start actually being accountable for lead gen, they need to start treating them in the same way.
And you mentioned earlier about leadership, and that's obviously the key part. I mean, when you go in, as you said, I mean, you have in your contract that marketing and sales will be in the same meeting. But how much of your initial work, though, or maybe even before you engage, how much of your initial work is really getting leadership on board and understanding that they have to bring these groups together properly?
Yeah, they actually, most leaders we meet know it needs to be done, don't always know how to do it or don't know if it will work. And sometimes we're brought in more by like the commercial team rather than the marketing team.
Right.
Sometimes the marketing teams are a little bit more reluctant for us to come in because we are going to change the way they work. But then
Mhm.
you also meet some marketing team goes, this is exactly what we need. But leaderships don't see that because they don't think marketing is useful. They
Mhm.
see it as an overhead. They don't want to spend more money on it. And then that's really the gateway, because you're like, well, that's exactly what you need us. But it's most leadership teams know they need to do this.
Mhm. And then where do you often see the problem then? Is it at the leadership level, or is it the level below, or is it just among the groups themselves? I mean, where are the points of friction that you often have to overcome?
Yeah, it's usually a bit lower. Um, and it's mainly at that middle level marketing and
Yeah.
sales where they've never been brought together. And that isn't through lack of talent or skill, it's just genuine fear and no one's really trained them.
Mhm.
You can go and do a marketing degree and no one talks about lead gen. You can go and do it, and you can be in branding and comms for ages, and you're very good at it, but you're never taught performance marketing unless you really work at an agency or you're curious and you start to learn.
Can you share an example? No, you don't have to name them, but an example of a customer you worked with and just talk through the transition.
Yeah, I'll maybe give a different scenario. So I have a B2B lead gen challenge where it started off as brand, and I really wanted like the brand looked at me, so that's great, but like what's the purpose of what we're trying to do? Who matters to you? What do we need to do? Like actually you can do branding, but to generate those leads, you really just need account-based marketing. So sometimes this can always be confused as well. And that's when you say, well, on a B2B side, you don't always need, not everyone is important to you. You're quite niche. You need this type of job title. You need this type of size audience. So actually, then you can just do a very simple lead gen, LinkedIn lead gen funnel, where you can use tools like SalesPOP, the Alfred, automate your requests through the lists you make in Navigator, pull those through to landing pages, and then generate inquiries or meetings or turn up to an event or go to a webinar. So those specialists can drive really good lead flow. And that's a really good example of where sales teams want to be involved in that. And that's interesting because there's this mix between, there's, as a brand, we need to do social media, and LinkedIn comes under that. And then the sales team will say, well, we need to do lead gen from that. So how do we do it? And then there's loggerheads on who says what. And that's the perfect project for them to come together on.
Yeah, no, that is, because you're right, because people get Sales Navigator and all that kind of stuff, and then they start to, and as you said, now with AI as well, every salesperson is sort of going, yeah, I can be a marketer too, I can do all this stuff. So I think that's a great area. Is that whole LinkedIn area is a great area to start with collaboration, because there's so many different aspects to it. And to be honest, not a lot of people get the LinkedIn part right anyway.
No, and that's where the two come together. Marketers know how to talk to people because they're usually in psychology and they understand it. Sales have the confidence to go out and ask. And when you bring the two together, it really is magic. Because if you automate those messages and then a human jumps in, so the sales person really only jumps in when there's something like, oh, okay, this person is hot, they're warm, and they've got a positive response. And then marketing learns from that, and then that's where it becomes really interesting, and you start to use the CRM. And there's awesome tools out there now like Surf, where you can scrape through and automate what you're saying. So like once person is connected straight into the CRM, you've got this good flow of contacts coming in that both marketing and sales can be really proud of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So where do you see the future of marketing? Because it's obviously going through some transitions right now. I mean, AI is forcing some on it, but in general, and obviously we've had changes where now people are having like chief revenue officers and stuff. People who are running sales and marketing and that. So what do you see the future of marketing?
Yeah, I think the game is still the same, just the playground keeps on changing. Marketing and sales have to work together more. It has to be more performance led so that there is always in and of what is the outcome. I think there's going to be much less because of RevOps and the way that's going, which I love and have loved that role for a really long time. There's going to be less of the fluffy marketing, and marketers will not be able to get away with it and sit behind those. I think there'll be less of the big creative campaigns and branding, and more into, okay, well, what is our quarterly campaign? What is the sales target? What do we need to generate? And I think marketing in general will be way more performance based through that CRM funnel and all the way through tracking it, because attribution now has to be tracked all the way through.
And obviously, again, as we said with AI, that's a whole other area now where with SEO and GEO and AEO and everything like that. So it's also getting more complicated at the same time.
It is and it isn't, because the way we search now is more in depth, and what we talk about and what we need is, so actually for niche B2B brands, it's brilliant. You'll waste less money because if you're ahead of the curve with AI search and its response and making sure that you're being scraped and that you'll come up in a Claude or a ChatGPT or whatever search, you can actually save a lot of time. And if you were years behind as a new brand, you didn't have that 15-year blog that got you up there, or didn't have the crazy ad spends that you would need. Actually, this is going to open the playing field. I'll be really interested to see how long and how much money we continue to spend on PPC and paid ads. I suspect that's going to go down significantly.
Yeah, oh, I would say absolutely, absolutely, because it's going the way we access information is changing, the way people get it, and the way it's going to be served up is changing. So yeah, that they're going to have to adapt to it. Well, listen, thanks so much, Charlotte. This has been fascinating. As I said, it's incredible. 2026, and we're still talking about sales and marketing alignment. And here, I'm going to. I rarely make predictions, but I'm going to make a prediction that we'll be still talking about in 2027. All of Charlotte's information will be below this video. Before we go, please do remind people about what you do.
Great, no, thanks for having me. Yeah, so Drew and Rose was a marketing company that bridges the gap between sales and marketing through full funnel creative lead generation.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thanks again, Charlotte. Thank you for watching and listening, and we'll see you all again very soon.